Belfast, 1972. A city fractured by violence, suspicion, and political upheaval. Amid the chaos of the Troubles, the disappearance of Jean McConville, a 38-year-old widow and mother of 10, became one of the era's most harrowing and enduring mysteries. Accused of being a British Army informant, or a tout, McConville was abducted from her home in the Divis Flats, executed, and buried in secret by the Irish Republican Army. Her disappearance symbolized the chilling brutality of the conflict and the devastating impact it had on innocent lives. As Patrick Radden Keefe describes in his book, Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland, McConville's story is not only one of personal tragedy, but also a lens through which the fractured morality and deep paranoia of the Troubles can be understood. Jean McConville's life had already been shaped by hardship before her tragic death. Widowed in 1966, she was left to care for her 10 children in the poverty-stricken Divis Flats of West Belfast. The flats, as described in Say Nothing, were a grim and volatile microcosm of the sectarian conflict tearing Northern Ireland apart. Catholic nationalists, Protestant loyalists, and British soldiers existed in an uneasy and often violent proximity. Despite her struggles, McConville was known for her compassion and resilience. Her children recalled her as a devoted mother who fought to maintain a semblance of normalcy in an environment where violence was a daily reality. However, her small act of kindness, offering aid to a wounded British soldier, allegedly sealed her fate in a community where allegiance to the cause of Irish nationalism was non-negotiable. In 1972, a group of masked IRA militants stormed McConville's flat, accusing her of informing on her neighbors to the British Army. The accusation, as Keefe details, was based on scant evidence and fueled more by local suspicions than concrete proof. In front of her terrified children, McConville was dragged away, never to be seen again. Jean McConville became one of the disappeared, a term used for those abducted and executed by the IRA under suspicion of betrayal. This practice was central to the IRA's strategy, a brutal means of enforcing loyalty and silencing dissent within their ranks and their communities. These disappearances were not just acts of violence, but tools of psychological warfare designed to instill fear and suppress opposition. For McConville's children, her abduction was the beginning of a nightmare. Left orphaned and destitute, they were scattered into children's homes and spent years haunted by the unanswered question of their mother's fate. In Say Nothing, Keefe paints a poignant picture of the children's anguish, describing how her eldest children were forced to grow up too quickly, taking on the burden of their younger siblings while grappling with the trauma of loss and uncertainty. The culture of silence surrounding McConville's disappearance was astounding. Neighbors who might have known the truth dared not speak out, fearing retribution. The IRA's ability to instill fear ensured that their actions, no matter how brutal, were rarely challenged. For nearly 3 decades, the McConville children endured an excruciating void, living in a shadow of unanswered questions. But Jean McConville's disappearance was more than a personal tragedy. It was emblematic of the culture of silence that defined the Troubles. A silence enforced by fear, retribution, and secrecy. This limbo persisted until the late 1990s, when fragments of the truth began to surface, largely due to the testimony of former IRA members in a secret project coming out of Boston College. The Belfast Project is a secretive and anonymous until participants' death project that intended to uncover the truth of the Troubles. By interviewing Republican paramilitaries and British loyalists, as well as promising to keep these tapes secret, the murder of Jean McConville would finally start to see some light. One of the most significant revelations came from Dolores Price, a former IRA operative who had been involved in some of the organization's most high-profile operations. In a series of interviews with the Belfast Project, Price disclosed chilling details about the IRA's practices, including their treatment of individuals suspected of betrayal. Among her revelations was an alleged confirmation that Jean McConville had been executed on the orders of senior IRA figures. Price described the abduction as part of a systematic policy of silencing perceived informants, many of whom were later classified as the disappeared. She also revealed that McConville's body had been buried in a secret location, underscoring the IRA's deliberate and premeditated attempts to erase all traces of their actions. Despite these admissions, the truth remained elusive. Price's statements hinted at involvement of high-ranking IRA members, but fell short of naming names with absolute certainty. However, they renewed scrutiny of key figures including Gerry Adams, the prominent Sinn Féin leader who had once been a senior member of the IRA. Adams has consistently denied involvement in McConville's abduction and execution, Yet, as Patrick Radden Keefe emphasizes in Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland, his name is often linked to the decisions made during that mysterious period. Keefe meticulously examines the evidence and testimony, painting a complex picture of an organization rife with paranoia and internal power struggles. In 2003, after years of fruitless searching and emotional turmoil, a breakthrough finally came for the McConville children. Acting on a tip from a passerby after a storm, investigators uncovered human remains buried in a shallow grave along Shelling Beach in County Louth, just south of the Irish border. Forensic analysis confirmed what the McConville family had long suspected. The remains belonged to Jean McConville. Her death, investigators determined, had been caused by a gunshot to the back of the head, a methodical and deliberate execution. Her remains bore no evidence of the abuse or torture often associated with IRA punishments, suggesting that her killing was intended to send a message rather than exact retribution. One of the most controversial aspects of McConville's case is the persistent link to Gerry Adams. Though Adams has categorically denied any role in her death, multiple former IRA members, including Brendan Hughes, have implicated him in interviews and testimonies. Hughes, a close associate of Adams and a senior IRA figure, alleges in the Belfast project that Adams was part of the decision-making process that led to McConville's execution. Keefe explores these claims in detail, highlighting how Adams' denials and the refusal of others to speak out reflect the enduring culture of silence that surrounds the Troubles. Ultimately, McConville's case is just another chapter in a story of brutal, continued political violence. Her execution was not just a murder, it was an act of calculated brutality designed to enforce loyalty and suppress dissent within a fractured community. The discovery of her remains brought a measure of truth to light, but the full story of her death and the identities of those who ordered and carried it out remain shrouded in secrecy. In Say Nothing, McConville's story is a reminder of the devastating consequences of secrecy and how unresolved trauma can reverberate across generations. For McConville's children, the discovery of her body brought some degree of closure, yet it fell short of providing the justice they deserved. The emotional and psychological scars left by their mother's abduction and brutal murder are profound and enduring. While they were able to recover her remains, the truth remained elusive. The trauma was not just from losing their mother, but from the unresolved questions about her death and the ongoing silence from those responsible. The IRA's eventual admission of responsibility for McConville's death in 2003 did little to relieve the family's pain or grant them the closure they had hoped for. The organization's justification, that she was a tout, was a deeply hurtful assertion that was later thoroughly discredited in various investigations, including a critical report by the Historical Enquiries Team, which was a unit of the Police Service of Northern Ireland, or PSNI, established in 2005 to investigate the 3,269 unsolved murders committed during the Troubles. In his book, Keefe carefully chronicles how the claim of McConville being an informant was never substantiated and was viewed by many as a cover-up for a politically motivated execution. Northern Ireland's complex political landscape, still grappling with the aftermath of decades of conflict, has created an environment where confronting past atrocities is often too difficult to do. Many former combatants from both sides of the divide remain steadfast in their positions, and the political establishment, both locally and internationally, has been hesitant to confront the full scope of responsibility. This has led to what Keefe describes as a partial reconciliation, where many victims, like the McConville family, are left in limbo, without full justice and without a shared understanding of what truly happened during the Troubles. The search for truth has, in many ways, become a battle against political inertia. However, the past remains a minefield in Northern Ireland, with unresolved historical wounds and ongoing debates about how best to navigate the legacy of violence, further complicating the McConville family's pursuit of justice for their mother's death. In Say Nothing, Patrick Radden Keefe captures the profound moral ambiguity of the Troubles, where heroes and villains are often indistinguishable and the line between loyalty and betrayal is thin. Jean McConville's life and death encapsulate the cost of this ambiguity: a mother lost, a family shattered, and a community scarred by silence. Her story is a testament to the enduring power of truth, even in the face of decades of denial and destruction. While justice may remain elusive, her legacy endures as a reminder that even in the darkest chapters of history, the voices of the silence can still be heard, and the disappeared can still be found. Thank you so much for watching.